Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. This is officially our first event in the new series on centering community and community-based research. So, welcome again. It's January's e-learning event with CBR Canada, and today we have some fantastic guest speakers on a really interesting and important topic. Our speakers today, Jessica Gaber, Latasha Wilson, and Fallon Aubée, will be talking to us about the development and implementation of a prison health research council and how they were able to center lived experience of incarceration in the development of this council and the research that they've done so far. As we get started today, I'll acknowledge that the CBR Canada Secretariat operates from the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, and Attawandaron, or Neutral Peoples. Our office is located out of Wilfrid Laurier University, and this is situated on the Haldimand Tract. The Haldimand Tract is a treaty of land that involves 6 miles on either side of the Grand River. It's unceded land that was promised to the Six Nations of the Grand River. We give thanks for the privilege to work and live on this land that we now call Waterloo, Ontario. And at CBR Canada, we're committed to building relationships with First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples throughout Turtle Island, as well as promoting research projects and approaches that actively work towards reconciliation. If anyone would like to, in the chat box, share which traditional territory you're coming from, we'd love to hear from you as well. And just briefly, if anyone is new to Community-Based Research Canada or to our e-learning events, just a brief introduction. We are a membership-based organization whose mission is to advance community-based research excellence in Canada by strengthening partnerships, building capacity, mobilizing knowledge, and championing community-based research. We are a social enterprise. We're funded entirely by our membership base here. And as part of the programming that we offer to our members, we host events like today's live discussion e-learning event, as well as our community of practice events. And if you explore our website, and we'll share the link to that at the end of the presentation today, you can find more information on our upcoming events, as well as recordings of past events and graphics that we've designed to summarize some of our event series. Our agenda for today, I'll very shortly be passing it over to our presenters, who will share with us a little bit about the Prison Research Council and the research that they've been doing. We'll then have some time at the end for question and answers. We'll try to save at least 20 minutes for Q&A at the end. So I encourage folks at any time during the presentation today, if you have a question, you can put it in the chat box. The presenters won't be looking at or responding to questions during the presentation, but that way when we do get to the question and answer period, if we already have some questions in the chat, we can start with those. So again, I encourage you, if any questions come up throughout the presentation, you can enter them into the chat box and we'll address them once we get to that Q&A period. So without further ado, I'll pass things over to our presenters, Jessica Gaber and Fallon Aubée. Latasha Wilson, unfortunately, is not able to join us right now, but we're hoping she may show up at some point during the presentation today.
Thanks, Amanda. Happy to be here. I guess we can just do a quick introduction to who we are. So I'm Jessica Gaber. I'm a research coordinator with the Department of Family Medicine at McMaster University, and I'm one of the co-facilitators of the Prison Health Research Council. Fallon?
Hi, everyone. Nice to see you all. My name is Fallon Aubée. I'm a member on the Health Research Council, and I am also a research leader. Thank you.
Great. So I'm going to go through our slides. We'll kind of be bouncing back and forth and talking about how we developed the council and why it's meaningful and some of the activities we've been doing. Okay, so the initial vision, the idea was working on this IAP2 stakeholder engagement options framework. We see a lot of research that is about people in prison where they're participants in the research, but we don't see them engaged. And even engaging stakeholders has a whole different sets of areas you can do And all of these might be meaningful in different situations. But what we were really trying to do was go right on this scale. So, right now, when we're engaging stakeholders, we're usually doing things like informing or sometimes consulting. We were trying to move even deeper with people with lived experience of incarceration in research that's about them, having them involved in the work, actively collaborating, or empowering in doing their own research, which is one of the things that we are really working on as a council now. So in the beginning, it started with Claire Bodkin, who is a faculty researcher and physician, and Lindsay Jennings, who I think I saw pop into this room, who's a community investigator, which is a neat new role that we actually developed with collaboration with other teams for our project. It's a staff role at McMaster for people with lived experience of something. And we designed this role and we brought Lindsay in, and she'd been collaborating with different projects with us for a long time. And they kind of got going on this idea of what a prison health research council might do, what it might look like. And then they applied for funding with our Family Medicine Associates, which is kind of an internal fund. And that funded the development and initial implementation. And I will say right now, just to give you a bit of a context, this was all happening in early 2024. We have been meeting as a council since January 2025, or do I have my year wrong? No, since January 2024, I think. I might be off. Anyway, been meeting for a while. Anyway, I'm going to pass it off to Fallon.
So the project goal was to establish a research council of people who had lived experience, because you can't get better information than from those who've actually lived it. Includes populations that were represented in prison, creating a space where the council members could drive the direction of the council and the prison health research overall. Again, getting back to factual, evidentiary-based information. How do I click the slide, or do I? Thank you.
Sorry, I'll do the slides forward. Just give me a ping.
Oh, okay. So why a prison health research council? Well, again, lived experience is expertise. It's where you get the nuts and bolts of everything exactly how it is. And as Jessica, if you can help me out with this again, please.
Yes, indeed. So the IAP2 framework is what I shared on that second slide. Actually, I'll show you for one quick second. Oops. So it's going from informing to consulting to involving to collaborate to empowering. It's moving in that direction of more power and more of the work coming from the people with lived experience. Bring us back. Again.
Yes, that sort of goes back to, having a factual, true experience. People live experience don't embellish things. They tell you how it is so that we can get it right the next time. So the experience, credibility again, and the expertise of the people lived experience incarceration may not be recognized a disenfranchised population. Lived experience represents expertise and people with lived experience of incarceration being critical perspectives on healthcare, and incarceration experiences. That includes people whom the research is about and can make the work more appropriate, valid, and more ethical. Next slide, please. And here again, same thing, more prison health research needs to be done. There's no doubt that there's an absence, there's a big gap in what needs and what is actually there. So the research tends to be mainly about federal prisons as information is more available. Provincial jails in Ontario need research to be done and show how healthcare of those incarcerated is horrendous and harmful, counterproductive, and the idea of jail for rehabilitation. It's just counterintuitive. A lot of research in general and geared towards crime, recidivism, not how incarceration affects health, also how healthcare is distributed within the correctional institutions, and then the barriers to health and care. Next slide.
All right, so this is moving back to me
Yeah.
because this was before the council was there. So, thinking about how we put together this council, this can be one of the real complicated things. First of all, we were lucky to have a team already that had a lot of connections in this area. So, we were using those personal and professional networks and social media. A bunch of folks had Instagram, and I know there have been some issues lately with using Instagram to recruit for research, because people that are just trying to make money show up. But I feel like we really targeted the work we were doing. And we're confident that of the people who applied, they all had experience of incarceration. And we were really happy that we had 44 applicants, which is kind of huge for research in general, for a council that's going to be ongoing work. I think part of the reason we had so many applicants was um, because of this shift in what people are doing. So these folks might have been invited to be research participants, um, some of them many times, I bet, but actually being consultants, being engaged, creating their own research was new. So we had a lot of interest. One of the other things we did, very nice, we had a grant line for this, which is always a tricky thing, figuring out the funding. We worked with a community engagement consultant. Their name is Amplify Engagement. Really nice group. Kind of just trying to help us think about the things we don't think about. So we were doing the recruitment strategy, we were doing materials, we were figuring out how we were going to focus on different characteristics and perspectives, like specific perspectives that people might have in prison, and how we find those people, like all of that. And they also joined us for our first couple of meetings, which was neat. We have really a lot of expertise on our team already in community engagement, in prison health, in advocacy, but bringing in an external consultant that sees things a little differently and more specifically was actually really useful. So ultimately, we selected 14 people, and including people who are overrepresented in prisons, who have specific viewpoints, such as people who are Black, Indigenous, queer, trans, two-spirit, because they may have different barriers to health, which is really what we're trying to figure out. Right now, a year and a half, 2 years in, there's 10 standing members of the council.
Yes, and to meet the council, a list of them here is Kenor, Latasha, who unfortunately couldn't join us today, George, Sonia, Nat, myself, Tina, James, Honey, and Brian. Fantastic group of people, not to put a feather in my own hat, but and then the project team, as mentioned earlier, Dr. Claire Bodkin, co-primary investigator, Dr. Fiona Kuyumdijan, did I get that right?
Always a tricky one.
Wow,
Kuyumjin.
yeah. Co-primary investigator, Lindsay Jennings, of course, an incredible community investigator, Jessica, wonderful research coordinator, and a great leader. Next slide, please. So work to date in the administration of the council, we have been holding virtual 2-hour monthly meetings since January 2024. So we got that date back. 21 regular meetings so far, plus extras for different project work similar to this. Meetings include council members, McMaster, so I'm going to go DFM means Department of Family Medicine, project team, faculty, researchers, and research staff, and often guests. Guests so far, 15 of them from 9 projects and organizations doing work around health and prisons. Great group of people. Council members get hourly honoraria, consistent with best practices for patient and public engagement. $50 an hour, paid for 2 hours per meeting plus an hour of prep. And I can tell you that as a person with lived experience of 22 years of being inside, coming out to trying to find employment would be impossible, difficult at the very least. I'm also a senior citizen with a disability, so this is actually a lifeline for me. Next slide, please, Jess. Okay, key themes across the meetings. Collaboration and community building. Well, that was really important. Regular work is done to strengthen relationships among the members, the council members themselves, and the project team members, which work compendiumly through a WhatsApp council member chat, check-ins at the beginnings of each meeting, and email connections to support the collaboration. Research and advocacy, of course, the council is planning and contributing to the research, consistently focusing on integrating lived experiences into research, identifying the gaps in prison healthcare, and advocating for policy changes. Feasibility and finding, while the necessary discussions on planning project feasibility and securing funding to sustain the council's work and support relevant projects. Guest speaker engagement, pardon me. Guest speakers provide insights into various prison-related issues, which inform the council's ongoing discussions and planning, and the council informs them on the lens, of course, on lived experience. Next slide, please. And our work to date. You want to take this away, Jess?
Sure, I'll take into this one. So to actually think about the work we've done in research, beyond just consulting on research for other teams, we've been working on research as a team. It's that, that last two segments to the right in that IAP2 framework. So first of all, we have to figure out what research is. I know because this is what I do for a living, and that's my day job, right? But some council members were coming mostly with experience in a variety of life experiences, not necessarily research specifically. Everyone had an interest, and that's why they joined the council, but some were brand new to research. We also had some that had been engaged in a lot of research projects before. But what we ended up doing was starting a Research 101 workshop. So that was one of our earlier meetings, our third or fourth meeting after we were trying to get to know each other, where we really just took 2 hours and went through the stages of research and how to access research funding. Research funding, you'll see us mentioning it a bunch, because trying to sustain the council when we're paying 10 people for 3 hours a month, plus the administration of myself and one other staff to make sure it can actually run, is tricky. As most of you probably know, it's easier to get grants for initial projects and harder to get grants for sustaining. So as we're planning things, we're also planning how to do new projects, both for engagement in research, for contributing to the data about prison health, and also for funding. So where we ended up, we have been discussing a lot of different research projects at various stages. And we've been working with researchers across Canada in trying to figure out how to contribute, how lived experience can help these projects and other things. You want this one, Fallon?
Sure, why not? So the impact to date, contributions to the prison health research, contributed work perspectives to projects on topics such as mortality from opioid toxicity, shifts in drug enforcement and impacts on people who use drugs, life sentences and lifers, myself, climate justice in prisons, healthcare standards in Canadian federal prisons, harm reduction, which is really important in jails, and there's so little of it. Mortality in prison, of course. Recording guidelines for prison health research, managing mental health issues in federal prisons, solitary confinement policy, and of course, potential for an Indigenous men's healing center. And that is really a spectacular effort, that one too. So, yeah, next one.
All right, so here's where I'm going to jump in again.
Yep.
We've also collaborated on tons of grants. As I keep bringing up the funding because honestly, we keep talking about it. But the grants also represent projects. So first, our first grant that we collaborated on with researchers and the Prison Health Research Council was a CIHR grant, Canadian Institutes of Health Research, and it was successful. So it was a really great start. This one was called Respect Guidelines, And the idea was creating a research reporting guideline for reporting research about people in prison. That project's underway right now, and there will be a guideline coming out of it. And then the council consulted on and contributed to a project about mortality in people who experience incarceration. That one's starting to get rolling, but we were successful. And we had a couple in there that weren't successful. I just won't bother to mention them, but we are a very productive team in terms of letters of reference and letters of suggestion for grants, and providing feedback on the protocol to make sure it fits with people who actually have experience of incarceration. The main one here is that middle one. That was for extending the council. So our original funding was just for 1 year, and this one gave us another year and a bit, because CIHR can kind of stretch up to another year. And we've got two that we are anxiously awaiting right now. One that's about climate risks. The council's involved on the side. We're going to hear very, very soon with that one because it's the big team grant that will come out next week. And then the last one, we applied for another one to extend the council itself again to do our research that we've started preparing. And yeah.
The work on the research projects of our own. So early on, we did a small wins, big dreams kind of structured brainstorming exercise. We found shared interest in starting research projects together, identifying gaps in healthcare, impacting policy, doing advocacy, promoting prison council, and getting it funded. I'm a prisoner's legal advocate. I have the experience of living in both the men's and the women's sector. So when it comes to healthcare as a trans woman, and having navigated through that journey, I'm able to bring in many different aspects of what I experienced. And the advocacy work that I did through the Human Rights Commissions in particular are advancing my ability to contribute to the council. So beyond that, we have now, started prep on a research project of our own, post-incarceration syndrome. We spent 2 full council meetings going through the process of identifying a topic of interest, developing a research question, and identifying methods, all which are really critical into getting post-incarceration syndrome has such a wide and broad definition. It affects everyone differently. So, as it says, to get it right, I guess, is really what it comes down to. And we submit a grant specific to this work. So the grant submitted, I think that's one that we're going to be hearing about fairly soon. Is that what you're referencing, Jess? No,
It is
anyway.
the next one. The one
Oh,
we're
okay.
finding soon is on climate risks in prison and mortality due to climate in prisons. Really timely, less council specific, but the next one's on this one.
Right. Thanks for helping me out there. Also, and we're starting to prepare a review about this relatively new topic. Again, very important. The review will inform decisions and provide information for others as we go forward. Next slide, please. Okay, value of council members. Well, providing people with criminal records part-time paid roles. As I mentioned earlier, for me, this is a lifeline, and I'm going to extend that to the conversations I've had with many others who find this their stepping stone back into a working role, into having made commitments through their day that are opposite what they were doing inside. It introduces new skills. We're building our existing skills. We're building resume experience. Giving people whom the research is about the space and the opportunity to lead research, which is really, really important to me. That's my heart and soul right here in this project. And giving ours or their perspectives on existing research and collaborate with other researchers across the country. Also, which for me is just broadening my knowledge base and opening my mind so much. And next slide. Go ahead, co-partner there.
All right. So thinking about what we're doing next, we are continuing to promote the council. So we have activities such as this. We're heading out to conferences across Canada and beyond. We had Fiona headed out to a conference in the US, which most folks couldn't cross the border, but that is a problem in criminal justice work. But she brought videos from everybody else, which was lovely. And we also have a website. I'm going to show you our fancy logo on the next page. We're also doing a webinar, oops, and we've changed it, on Wednesday, February 18th, when we will be launching the council more broadly and trying to promote it to nonprofit organizations who work in this field and other people doing prison health research and other folks who just might care about this sort of idea. And yeah, as I keep harping on, we're continuing to seek funding to keep this council going. Ideas and contributions are welcome. Feel free to drop anything in the chat if you've got a great idea that seems like it would fit perfectly for the work we do. And we're doing research. We're continuing work on our research project. We're starting to develop that project on post-incarceration syndrome. And we're bringing in researchers nationwide, as well as like community organizations and things like that. We have a lot of guest speakers still, and we're consulting and figuring this out. Okay, I think. So, oh, there we go.
So our conclusions are the council works towards ameliorating the system of exclusion of people with lived experience of incarceration from research through reflecting the needs, priorities, and the issues of people who experience incarceration, much of what we've talked about briefly. This work holds relevance to researchers in other jurisdictions who want to bring a voice, power, and opportunities to the people whom the research is about. And as I extended the opportunities that this council has provided me and the outreach to other agencies that I'm, gathering information and becoming a part of, has been very important, very special in my personal experience. And, not to speak for others, but I've had feedback that was very much echoing that same sentiment from other members as well. So, yeah. And that's what our research is about. Yeah.
All right. And you can find us here.
Yeah, this is where you can find us. All righty. Sorry, Jess, I messed that up.
We were going to say it at the same time, but this is also fun.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so thank you for a beautiful logo. Yeah, we had one of our members set it up. We still don't know. I think a young person actually did the final logo, but yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, both of you, Jessica and Fallon. This is fantastic to hear kind of how this council came to be, some of the work that you've been involved in so far, the impacts you've already had, the fact that there's been, guidelines developed for how other researchers can write about prison research. That's phenomenal to hear. I'm sure that goes a long way in thinking about reducing some of the biases and discriminatory ways that some researchers may report and perpetuate some of those aspects. So it's fantastic to hear. I see there's been a couple questions in the chat box so far, so I'll start with those. I think I have a couple questions of my own as well that we can have some conversation around. If anyone else has any questions that they would like to put forward for the presenters, please put those in the chat box and we'll get to them as we can. So the first question here was just a very quick clarifying question. When you were talking about prison, and I think you addressed this in the presentation already, is your research in your prison council focusing only on federal institutions or provincial as well?
Oh yeah, we kind of use prison as a shorthand.
Mm-hmm.
We mean any incarceration related to the criminal justice system. And even beyond, we might consider, involuntary confinement and mental institution type things as well. We might talk about that, but our focus is any incarceration in criminal justice systems, jails, prisons, correctional institutions. Right? Any other thoughts, Fallon?
I think sometimes people make a distinction between a jail being provincial and a prison being federal. And we kind of get that sentiment, I think, from the American style movies because, well, they portray everything as prison being this, badass place to be, and you can be a hard rock and all you want to be, but really that's not how it is. You get there and life is really happening. So, yeah.
And for those who don't know, the difference between provincial and federal in Canada is that federal is any sentence of 2 years or more. So it's not like a different type of thing. It's just how many years.
Right. Okay. Thank you for that clarification. That's helpful. I know I don't know all of those ins and outs of the prison system, so that's good to know. There was a question here as well about if you consult on or assist with any ethics for other researchers involving prison populations. Is that something you've done to the state?
Maybe I can clarify that. That was my question.
Mhm.
My
Sure.
apologies. So my name is Roseanne. I am a first year PhD student in at Oise, but what I was looking at was the potential to be able to work with Black youth and Indigenous youth who have had conflict with the criminal justice system, but they could potentially be um, uh, currently incarcerated. Some of the work that I was thinking of, I didn't know how ethics has been approved in
Mm.
the work that you're doing, and then is there any way that you provide any kind of here's how we did it kind of thing so that I don't have
Mhm.
to go through the whole thing all over again?
Mhm.
That is an interesting question.
Okay.
We have discussed like dreams that um, we could approve ethics, but that's not a thing yet. You know, if people were to send their research to the council first for ethical
Mhm.
approval before it goes to a institutional body, that'd be a neat thing if we could set that up. It's not set up yet, but I mean, a lot of times when the researchers are coming by, it might be at that stage. And we have done related ethics applications for this work.
Okay.
That's really, yeah, it's an interesting question. I wonder if either of you, maybe off the top of your head, would have advice for someone looking to do research, potentially with, in collaboration with folks from prison. What are some of the things that you've learned about how to do that ethically and safely? And when you think about that framework you showed at the beginning, what are the ways that actually get to authentic collaboration?
Jess?
Fallon, do you want to take it first?
Okay, so ethical collaboration. Number one, I think the single most important piece of it is really hearing the words that we're speaking and not changing what is being said to fit a
Mm.
narrative or a script or anything, because you want to keep that fundamentally correct. Um, from an ethical perspective, if I was writing a document and I changed someone else's words, then I've lost the value of it in my mind's eye. Now, I'm not an expert on the ethics. I am actually enrolled now in a research
Mm.
certificate. So I'm going to have better insight on this coming up. And hopefully I can be able to contribute more. But maybe Jess can provide a more sustainable answer for you on that question.
Mhm.
Um, I'm actually doing my PhD in health policy right now, and my dissertation is about how to do more ethical research in prisons.
Mm.
So I'm going to have a really detailed answer for you in about 3 years. Um, but yeah, there's some really good article guidelines online, but a few of them, uh, there's just a lot of considerations to think about. I was just contributing to a international guideline from WEFREN. I don't know if it's out yet. WEFREN stands for the uh, the Worldwide Prison Health Research and Engagement Network. So they have a document coming out very soon that is literally a 100-page document about ethical guidance for research in prisons. Um, so that is my first thing, which is much bigger than one tidy idea.
Oh, that's fantastic. It's great to know just that there is work happening in this area, and Jessica will all be eagerly waiting for your
Thank you.
dissertation. That's fantastic to hear. Um, I'll get maybe to a couple other questions in the chat before I continue with some of my lines of questioning. So there's a couple questions here that came in. Um, the work and the research that the Prison Health Research Council does, is it specifically focused on physically health, or are you looking at physical and mental health?
What I really love about the Research Council is the ideology that we're looking at overall health. It's one thing to say, oh, I got a broken arm, can you fix it? But what else led to that broken arm? What mental
Mm,
health issues were there? What depression factors were there? Or if suddenly you wind up with a cut that is mysterious, is it self-harm? Like, there's so many gaps in that system that
mm,
for me, like I said, it's just this is the place for me to be for sure.
yeah.
And also with the added knowledge of both systems. So I'm the first one in Canada to go from the men's system to the women's as a pre-op trans woman before any
Mm,
surgery whatsoever. So that involved changing the Human Rights Act, amending criminal laws, a bunch of
mhm,
things that fortunately the government was able to agree with us on. But that's a very small part of it. When you get behind the wire and you're trying to take care of yourself, and in my case, transitioning with, pushing 30-foot tall, 30-foot deep concrete walls inch by inch, it was an arduous process and a very painful process at the same time. So
mm,
when we get back to this research and we're talking about, what we want to put forward and what we want people to know, this council is going to be able to put something together that will make sense, that people will understand. And
mhm,
that's really important to me.
mhm,
And I also add, it's even beyond just physical and mental health. It's the whole idea of wellness. And we're also incorporating Indigenous ways of knowing, like spiritual
mm,
health and things like that. Like whatever can impact people's well living, their wellness, their good ways of being is what we're looking at. So it's pretty broad. It can get
mm,
broad.
But it also contributes to more success in the community when you come back.
Mhm.
If you're treated
mhm,
like a human being rather than just a dollar sign or a number, and you come
mm,
back and you still bring your dignity back with you to society, you're not so afraid to step into that pool and push harder to get through. But when you're defeated, when you're getting out, you've got no purpose and no ambition. It's impossible. It's literally impossible. You're broken when you leave, you're going to be broken on the outside. So, yeah.
mm. Thank you so much. I think, that perspective that you're taking in this of that holistic view of health and well-being is so essential to think about. It feels so fragmented that there's different parts of our system that look at physical versus mental health when, like you were talking about, Fallon, they can be very interconnected. So that's fantastic to hear that the council is looking holistically at it. And Fallon, thank you so much for sharing your lived experience as well. It's really impactful to hear your story, your experiences, and how that's kind of shaping what you can bring to the council. So thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that very much.
One of the other questions here was if you ever go downstream looking at the effects, and you just talked about, Fallon, it's hard when you get outside. Does any of your research or has any of your research looked at the health and well-being post-incarceration, or are you focusing on the
Mm.
kind of within incarceration?
I, well, Jess, why don't you respond to that, please?
Yeah, so we sometimes use the term uh, people who experience incarceration when we're
Mhm,
thinking about who our population that we're serving is. So it's people who have been incarcerated and people that are out. And
mhm,
um, that reorienting to the community is a really important piece of the experience, I think. So it, especially in our project of post incarceration syndrome, that's pretty
Yeah,
much entirely people that are out already,
yeah.
because it's looking at how prison affected them.
yeah, yeah.
It tells you, it's able to tell you about what prison has stolen from you. In my 22
Mhm.
years on the inside, and I maintained that I was wrongfully convicted from the beginning, and I'll maintain that till they bury me. But aside from that, everything that I missed in that 22 years, whether I was there rightly or wrongly, is something you will never replace. I've had children since I've been out passed away. I've lost 5 children in my life now. It's absolutely horrifying what people behind the wire experience that they have to come back outside to with
Mhm.
everyone else and then try to deal with all their stuff. And
Mhm.
people wonder why they break. Why do they smash that same window 7 times? It's because they're broken. They need to be helped, not hindered, you know. And I find that the systems, I am grateful for the post-incarceration project that we're doing because this is really going to open a lot of eyes. It's going to have relevance to indicators of recidivism and failure, and we're
Mhm.
really going to be able to school a lot of people on what's actually happening here. So I'm, again, just so happy to be here.
Mhm. Mhm. Thank you, Fallon. And Regine, this was your question, and I see you have your hand up. So would you like to expand on your question?
Yes. Thank you so much for all the insight that's been provided so far. I really appreciate it. I just meant more so because there are some like downstream effects.
Mm.
For example, we sometimes call them like crossover youth. So youth who have been involved in the child welfare system or in various other institutions, and then how that makes them more susceptible or like susceptible to being overrepresented in like other systems as well, whether that's like
Mhm.
um, a lot of people get released and then experience unstable housing or whatever the case is. So that was just like my question on like, is it, are we like, is the focus specifically on health and like around that piece? However, I think it was answered previously already that you're looking at things holistically. So yeah.
Okay.
Our definition of health keeps expanding a bit. So does our definition of research.
Yeah.
Because we're like, oh, this is technically clinical guidelines, but the clinical guidelines could lead to research. Doesn't it make sense that we consult on them? Like that sort of thing. But we're
Mhm.
trying to be prison, well, correctional health research
Mhm.
broadly.
Mhm.
We,
Mhm.
we want a pathway around the pond so that nothing gets left behind.
Yeah.
With the intention to send the message that prison or jail is not a badge of honor. It's when you come out of there, you got a lot of work to do.
Mhm.
You know, it's not that difficult to get there, but it's really hard to come home again. And coming home with a whole heart is really tough, if that
Mhm.
helps any.
Mhm. Thank you both for continuing to expand on that, and you're really driving home that point that everything is interconnected, and if we don't take that holistic view of things, there will be things we miss in that picture. So thank you. I think there was a couple other aspects to your question there, Regine, and this one is about the Prison Health Research Council itself. Um, do you currently engage, or do you have a strategy for engaging with those who are currently incarcerated as part of the Health Research Council or in any other ways?
Not on the council as members,
Hmm.
but we are trying to get our work to matter to people in prison. A lot of the connections we have right now, though, are one to one. It's, individual members who know individual people.
Yeah.
One of the other ways, I was looking at the questions in advance, that you can reach out to people who are currently incarcerated is Cell Count, which is a newspaper that goes out to prisons across Canada.
Hmm.
One of our members is actually works on cell count too, so we have that little in there. I don't know, Fallon, any other ways that we can actually that we do or can engage
I
people
do
inside?
share the Prison Health Council website with as many people as I
Right.
can. I've shared it with all my friends and family. I do know that it's been shared in India to people there.
Hmm.
Although just through family and that connection. But then one of the people so the lady here was a lawyer in India. She's now going to be a lawyer here who communicates with her family in India who has people in the criminal justice system there. I'm hoping it gets out. I'm really hoping it gets out. So I'm not going to hold my breath, but I'm putting it out there everywhere I can and hoping that others do the same. Is I think the best way that we can share what we're doing on the surface and perhaps, if they want to jump in on things like this from time to time, if they're academically involved or whatever, we can
Hmm.
help them with that too, I think. Hey, Jess?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's that snowballing idea. You tell someone, maybe they tell someone. It's a lot of personal connections, just doing our best.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you. That it's you can certainly see why that would be kind of a whole different bag to get into, is trying to find the strategies to engage folks currently incarcerated. And you've spoken a lot about just the experiences that folks have coming out and their ability to speak to what it was like inside. Like that, it sounds like you're getting such valuable expertise. Um, Certainly something to consider. How could that be done ethically if that were something we were going to try to expand into? It's interesting.
That is very interesting for sure. Yeah.
Hmm. And there was a last part of the question there. Um, are there any differences you see maybe between the experiences of those in provincial versus federal institutions? And Regine, I see you have your hand again. Would you like to clarify what you meant by that question?
Yeah, sorry. I just meant that like maybe in the research, do you differentiate? Because I like currently have a loved one incarcerated right now in a provincial jail, and I have another loved one who just got out last month after being incarcerated for 8 years in a federal institution. And speaking to both of them, their experiences are completely different, and so
Mm.
I fear that like if one is overrepresented like in terms of like sharing it, like it might you might lose some details on like what the realities are within like provincial versus federal institutions.
Interesting. I see what you're getting at. Yeah. When you are making recommendations around guidelines and things like that, do we need to differentiate or distinguish between those? And if so, how do we make sure that both or the various different experiences are represented?
That is a very unique perspective because they are two completely different systems. One is apples, one is oranges.
Hmm.
I don't have a lot of provincial experience. I did back in the 80s, very short little stints. I could tell you then that healthcare was literally non-existent in the provincial sector. My experiences today and the feedback I'm getting from, people that collaborate with me across the country is that the provincial system everywhere is just crap. There's no healthcare, there's no resources, there's no employment, there's absolutely no way for anybody to make anything of themselves other than get into trouble. And if we understand the cycle of incarceration, it begins with juvenile detention, where they meet their friends, they graduate to the provincial sector, and then all of a sudden, well, they also all graduate to the federal sector. And once they're there, they're trapped. They're in this life cycle that, is ingrained. And that's not healthy. So we get back to the overall health, we get back to their physical, emotional, mental, spiritual health. I'm Indigenous. I want to work with Indigenous youth and Black youth and Hispanic youth and white youth and all the youth because prison is not a place for anybody. And if you wind up there in the most egregious of circumstances similar to mine, trust me, it's going to leave a scar in your heart that'll never go away. So overall wellness is critically important for everything and for everyone. And those that come back to society more broken than they were when they went in, somebody's going to get hurt. It's as simple as that.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah, so when we're doing research, like one of the demographics questions, Wes, age, gender, sex, whatever, what prison system were you incarcerated in? Because we have to understand, because sometimes the experiences can be so different.
Mhm.
One of the other things I was going to point out in Canada is that who does the healthcare is different in different systems. So federal does their own healthcare. A lot of provincial systems also do their own healthcare rather than working under the Ministry of Health. But a couple provinces use the Ministry of Health now. BC and Nova Scotia, now the Ministry of Health provides the healthcare in the provincial facilities, which the theory is that's going to be better. But it's still pretty new in Canada. It used to be the prison systems always doing their own healthcare, which is kind of a conflict because prison systems are not healthcare institutions. So it's,
Yeah.
yeah. But yeah, it's
Yeah.
definitely a different experience.
I kind of feel that the Health Services Organization was kind of focusing on trying to make it a universal process so that every province, every prison, every jail, whatever it may be, would have exactly the same. I think that's a little bit altruistic because the funding streams and everything else are just so diverse and they're not consistent. But I mean, the ideology, great. Whether or not we can make it a practical thing, I'm not so sure.
Thank you for expanding that. And Jessica, I think you asked or answered the original question there, that that's one of the questions you ask on your intake is, whether it's provincial or federal. And you both have spoken about the just the importance in recognizing those differences. And it's so fantastic to hear you both speak about this. Thank you. And I see there's been just some comments back and forth in the chat. And Roseanne, you had your hand up at one point, and I see you just put a question in the chat. Are you doing research on crossover youth
Oh,
populations?
that was specifically for one of the members that was on. I think one of the
Ah,
questions that I had specifically was, how do I put it? Um, okay, two questions. So I went to the website. Are there currently any findings that you've already published is one question. And then the other thing is that I know that you've kind of set up as this as a council. Is there a time frame for the council? Like, are you guys within the next 5 years, or is this something that you would be continuing on for as long as you get funding for it?
hmm, good questions. And
Let's say
Jessica, you
we
spoke.
hope.
Oh.
We're hoping for around 5 years at least, and then we might have to reconfigure. We've been 2.5 now, I think, technically.
Mhm,
Um, and we're not done yet. It's kind of that question, and it's still, we're contingent on whether we can keep getting funded. Whether we have anything published yet, we don't. We are working on, which Fallon doesn't know, because I just got a draft from Fiona of an academic paper that's like summarizing the council, the kind of like what we presented today,
mhm,
like the development and things like that. That may be, we're going to submit it to like Canadian Family Physician and things like that, because we're
mhm,
the Department of Family Medicine. So it all relates back to family medicine, primary care, and that sort of thing. Um, so yeah, we're going to be pitching that soon. And yeah, we don't have results yet. We're really just getting started because post-incarceration syndrome as a syndrome is like a new idea. Like,
mhm.
so we're trying to help map what it is, and we're starting reviews and like process of that earlier. But there might be a bunch of published stuff actually from the projects that council has consulted on.
Mhm.
Mm,
I'd
okay.
like to
We
throw
we should
something.
make sure our guests come back with stuff. That's actually something we don't have.
Some sort of feedback loop, so you see what has come of the pieces you've provided.
Yeah.
I'd personally like to see post-incarceration syndrome, pardon me, measured up against a disability
Mm.
Mm,
because
mhm,
it's a real thing. It is seriously a real thing. You had somebody that's been here for 25 years, has never held a cell phone or never had access to the internet or doesn't know what
right.
electronic banking, hasn't been on the SkyTrain or anything. Like it's a huge disability. It really is.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
I had a 25-year hiatus from technology. Wow. Ask Jess, she knows. I've
Well,
embarrassed
and look at you
You've
myself
been
now
from
catching
presenting on a
on
Zoom call.
really fast. All things considered, you've been doing super good at the tech stuff.
Mhm,
and I don't feel so good about it. However, I'm learning.
mhm, mhm. Yeah. No, it's something you don't really think about, right? Is the world moves on and changes, and even for those of us who have been in the world as it's changed, things change so rapidly. So it's hard to imagine what that would be like to be away from society and come back to a whole new world. So
Yeah.
thank you for speaking about that. Mhm. We'll have to wrap up our questions very soon. Lucas, I see you have a hand. Do you have a question for our presenters today?
I did. I just wanted to preface by saying like incredibly powerful presentation. I think that it was really insightful the way you guys answered the questions. Fallon, thank you so much for recounting on your own experiences itself. As an undergraduate here, a lot of this stuff is pretty just getting my toe in the water about a lot of different things, and I'm really glad to be widening my worldview about a bunch of issues that do exist in my country. Um, Now, one question I did have, which is might be a little more general, but I was wondering if you guys had any plans for the rehabilitation part of the prison system, specifically about what their sort of the practices and the culture in the prison system. I myself, I've never been to prison. I don't know many people directly who have been to prison, so I don't quite actually have a full grasp of what it really is like. But hearing that you have a team that has firsthand experience and really are seeking to change, like I would love to know if you guys had any plans regarding to that.
Mm. Yeah,
Like
so is that an
changing the
area that
prison
your research
system?
looks on?
Sorry. So you're asking like changing the prison system itself sort of idea?
Um, in a sense, I know that's a very like ambitious idea. I mean, more so like making it a little more because I guess in my idea or in my mind, I know that prisons like main intent or main purpose is to rehabilitate, to help people, to help offenders, and like at
Wow.
least in an ideological sense. But clearly, that's not being reached. So I
Mm.
wanted to know if there was like any plans to sort of maybe bridge that gap a little more.
Mm.
Abolition. The simple answer is humanize the enterprise. Get rid of the
Yeah.
uniforms, get rid of the locks, get rid of the wire, make it like a school, teach people what they need to know to survive.
Mm.
Rehabilitation is simple. Take out all the bullshit and we're going to get it right. Leave it to us to tell you what we need. We know what we need. You
Yeah.
can't tell us. We know. And that's where I want to leave my words today is that we are the ones who know.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean that's how we start for sure. And hopefully one day it gets there. I for sure know it's not anywhere near there, but hopefully one day it can actually get there.
Mhm. Thank you. It's a good
Yeah.
reminder of, these systems get
Yeah.
so far from their initial intentions, and just become twisted out of what they are originally meant to be, and we don't often think about that. So thanks for the question, Lucas and Fallon. Those were really fantastic kind of ending words to leave us with there is, you are the ones that know, and all of us, we're the masters of our own experiences. And this is really going back to the whole value of centering community and community-based research, which is the theme of this series here, is we do need those lived experience perspectives to be at the center of driving and informing research. That famous adage of nothing about me without me, right? That's you've highlighted so eloquently, both of you, the importance of that, and the successes you've had in doing that through the Prison Health Research Council. So thank you both so much. We'll start to wrap up here. We have 3 minutes to do a very quick wrap up today. I'll pull my screen back up here for everyone to see. Here we go. Move my chat box off to the side. There was a question at the very beginning about the slides for today and if folks will have access to them. So just again to reiterate, the recording of the session today, as well as the slides from the presenters, will be on our website. So folks will be able to access those, view them at their leisure, send the recording to others who were not here today to be able to experience this in person. Um, that will all be on our website for you to share, and I've just put the link in the chat to where you can find our recordings and our slides. We would love for all of you to stay in touch with us. If you're not already on the CBR Canada newsletter, you can sign up for our newsletter to get updates about our upcoming events. There was the question about whether there's been anything published from the Prison Health Research Council yet. One of the things we love to share in our newsletter is any publications or knowledge mobilization pieces or graphics or whatever comes out of our research of our members. So Jessica, Fallon, if you learn of anything that's been published that you've consulted on, if there's anything that you have worked towards that gets published, like that article you mentioned, Jessica, send that to us at CBR Canada. We'll include that in our newsletter for folks to stay updated on what you're doing. And I've put that link in the chat where folks can sign up for our newsletter to receive other publications and event notifications. And lastly, for any folks who want to continue to be a part of these conversations, again, this was the first event in our new series exploring how we can center community, center lived experience in community-based research. This session, we focused on lived experiences of incarceration and centering them and the experiences of the Prison Health Research Council. Our next event in February, we will be looking at lived experiences of parenting with cognitive challenges. And we'll be looking at a project, a research project through the Social Impact Hub at Durham College called Raising Resilient Families, where they have empowered and engaged parents with cognitive challenges to co-produce research and findings to support other parents with cognitive challenges. So another surely fascinating event. And just one final thank you to everyone who attended today. It's always lovely when there's some side conversations, some connections that folks are making. One of our goals at CBR Canada is to facilitate connections. So we love when we see these connections being formed in our events. And thank you so much again, Jessica and Fallon. It was a fantastic presentation and so valuable to hear from both of you. So thank you. Thank you, everyone. And hopefully we'll see you again at our next event.
Thank you,
Thank
everyone.
you
It's a
very
pleasure to
much.
be here.
Mhm.